Career Day lied to you. Every job has a version people see and a version nobody talks about. I'm your host, Anjalika Sriwastava, and my mission is to bring you that raw, unfiltered truth. Because before you spend your entire life becoming something, you deserve to know what you're signing up for. This is The Naive Expert, and thank you so much for joining us for our first episode here today. My first guest is Sneha Sriwastava. She's a solar project developer, and most people have never heard of this job, which is why I think this is exactly why we need to talk about it. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Ms. Sneha. Could you give us a brief description, an honest one, not something that makes it on a career day presentations, of what your job truly is?
Absolutely. Happy to be here. A solar project developer is a person who is quite well aware of a solar project from the beginning when it comes to it, to you, to the point when it's actually on the ground and installed. That's like the high level.
Thank you so much for that brief overview. Now, thinking about it from a teenage perspective, we have all these expectations of our parents, of society, of our friends, our peers, and we feel a little bit confused a little bit scared, in fact, about taking that first step and really committing towards a career path. What's something that you wish someone had told you before you started your job in this career field?
I actually love my job, and I think this job gives a person an opportunity to not only interact with customers, people in their team, and the wider uh, city permitting office and utility, but also gives them some focus time where you can actually solve the problem, and then you can actually see the work that you've done on the ground. So it's very rewarding.
Yeah, it seems like seeing your real project that you designed, that you put your hard work into, must be something truly precious to see in real life. What is your favorite project that you've designed, and how did you feel when you first saw it fully installed?
One of my favorite projects was a very complex grid structure on which we put the solar panels, and there was a lot of engineering on it, and there was a lot of collaboration. There was a lot of working with the utility, working with the permitting department, working with the customer, and that happens to be in NVIDIA. There is a beautiful trellis structure on top of which we've mounted solar panels. So that building gets power from the sun, and it helps them achieve their LEED certification, which shows the world that NVIDIA is committed to being very solar friendly.
Yeah, that seems like it must have been a truly prideful moment. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And when you spoke about this project, I noticed that you had a lot of passion behind it. So, may I ask you, what's the real reason that you ended up in this career? Not just one that you share on your LinkedIn profile, but something that truly means a lot to you within your heart.
Well, I actually came from a civil engineering background, and I was very interested in environmental and sustainability. And I was exploring careers there. But then I hit upon this option of solar energy, and I realized that there's many ways of meeting the same end goal. And that's some of the things that was one of the things that drew me towards renewable energy. So I feel like in my job as a solar project developer, I get to, do what I really like or I feel very strongly about, which is the environment and being sustainable. So when I design solar panels, I think about the efficiency that is achieved by the customer and by their solar project, and that really drives me.
I think it's really wonderful that you describe this environment where there's a lot of synergy with everyone trying to meet the same goals.
I don't want to do, and which was like be in a medical profession or be in a very rote computer science job. I wanted to actually feel what I'm doing and be able to deliver, a project that I actually can work on. So when I got this opportunity, it was really precious because it gave me a network of things that I really enjoy doing without feeling like there's a lot of pressure. So I think I think an advice that I would say for a teenager or a high school student is to explore these kind of jobs which are not out there as oftenly or as commonly available, but there are these avenues that you can go to if you just follow your passion.
I'm so glad that you touched upon a topic of not only finding your passion, but also understanding what you don't want to do. Because I think that boundary is very important to also set, and it really allows you to focus in on exactly what you want to do and narrow that career choice down. So, thank you for touching on that. I also liked how you mentioned a little bit about your personal background from where you were coming from. There was either like a medical professional job that was sought after or a very computer oriented professional job, and you felt like you didn't fit into either one. So, how did you really narrow down on that career choice that, oh, I want to do something civil engineering because I can see my impact in this career and I can collaborate with people around me? How did you narrow down to that very specific choice? What is a soft skill that may be more useful on a daily basis rather than a technical skill that was acquired through many years of work?
A soft skill that is so indispensable in this role is communication. To be able to really interact with multiple team members and to really understand what the customer wants and how can this project solve that problem. It's not about technical knowledge at some point, it is about getting the idea or the project or the task across to the person who's across. I work with project managers, I work with customers, I work with the utility, and I work with the permitting department in addition to my team members. And I noticed that one very important skill is how to break a concept down and explain it to somebody so that they get buy in and they can help assist along the way.
I think you're doing a really great job as breaking down the role of your career and your job for all of us that will benefit from this. So thank you so much once again. What did you think that you were going to be when you were someone who was my age? I know that, as I touched on before, the pressure of our peers, of society, our parents really puts a lot of pressure. It feels like the weight of the world on our shoulders when we have to make this career decision that we think we're going to be stuck with for the rest of our lives. But it's really perspective changing when we get to talk with professionals and realize that they were once in the same position as us. So, were you our age and thinking that maybe you wanted to do something completely different that you are currently in?
Well, when I was your age, there wasn't a field called solar project developer. And I actually did not know that I would be drawn in this direction. When I was in high school, I kind of felt, well, decided to do civil engineering because I wanted to do a kind of a field. I wanted to be in a field where, not only is there independence to have some kind of a design orientation, but also a field where there's just so many options. So I really didn't have a strong aptitude towards, computer programming or mechanical engineering or being in the law or stuff like that, which were those options available at my time. I felt like this may be a career, this may be a field which I'm interested in, and I wouldn't have to really force myself to do something. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to change. So in my case, I started as a civil engineer, I went into project engineering in sustainability, and then from there, I decided to come to solar. So there's a lot of ways to navigate a career, and oftentimes the fact that you know that you don't want to do something and you kind of want to do something helps you to explore more options in between.
And what did people in your life have to say about this decision that you didn't want to do medical, you didn't want to do law, you didn't want to do something that was conventional? What did they have to say about that? Were they encouraging? Were they a little discouraging? Did they tell you that it wasn't feasible?
There were some some noise about, maybe I would be a better fit for a non-science career, or there was a little bit of, a direction that was being given about going into electrical engineering. But at that time, I was able to follow my heart, and I noticed that there were so many civil engineers around me who were able to talk to me about it, about the field, the different avenues available for a civil engineer, such as you could go to build bridges, you could go to build buildings, you could even go into architecture from there, or you could even do material science. And that was the direction I wanted to go in, material science. So I think, even though there were people who were saying, oh, this is not such a amazing sought after career, I felt it's okay to try it out and see where it lands.
Mhm. I think it's really helpful when there are people to give you that guidance and that encouragement that there are so many opportunities in this specific career choice. And I think that's something that as teenagers we also need to look into and remember that if we go in one direction, it's not something that we have to do for the rest of our lives. There are other branches that we can stream into. And I think that's a very important motto that we have to keep in mind while we are growing up as well. So I love how when you're talking, you have this excitement and this passion that really shows us young people that when you are in the right career for you, you feel so happy and so peaceful. But I would also like to shed some light onto some of the awkward questions that I teased about in my trailer as well. Do you really wake up every single morning excited to go to work?
Yes and no. Yes, I'm very excited to meet my team. I'm very excited to solve problems. But there are a lot of times when I have to work with tough choices and tough people, such as people in the permitting departments. They sometimes don't really care for this project as much. They don't care about the timelines of the project. And then we are always running into incentives, and they run out very often. So every solar project needs financial aspect of it, which helps to make it work. And you have to work with financing organizations such as banks, and you have to work with um, chartered accountants or the financial advisors of customers, so that they can make sure that the right incentives are made available for the project. And those are days when I kind of dread having to keep on pursuing the same topic, and we have to be very persistent in getting these, and sometimes things don't work out, and those days are stressful.
Yeah. I liked how you touched on the balance between some days when you're excited and some days when it's a little more stressful and a little more overwhelming. How do you find that balance between like your emotions that you feel at work about the stress and the overwhelmness and all of the people who you have to talk to that might not be very easy to talk to and the difficult decisions? How do you balance that aspect of your life with your home life, with your children, with your family, with the chores, the regular chores at home? How did you achieve that balance and how long did it take you to find that?
Well, I would say that being in the solar industry and being in the energy industry at this moment, there is a very good blend of work and life, because we not only have an ability to switch off after sun goes down. There are only a few periods where you really have to work through, but majority of the time I do have my time back, and that's something I really um, feel grateful for, because that allows me to have some time for my family. And we all have so many um, passions outside of work, so I feel like that is very key.
I'm so glad that over time you have found that balance between your work and your home life. But let's say in a scenario you aren't able to prioritize your home life. How does that affect you emotionally? Do you feel overwhelmed or stressed out, maybe even frustrated that your work is taking priority over your family? And how do you deal with that kind of scenario?
There are times when it feels like work's taking a lot of a person's time, but I try to remember that it's always a roller coaster. There are times when there's a lot of deadlines that approach, and they cannot be changed. And then there are times when there's a lull period where we get to actually investigate on how can we make our tools better, how can we refine the process better. So if I take a holistic picture, it often helps me to feel ready to take on the challenge. And at some instances there are you do have to lean on your family members, your spouse, your children, or your parents to help with the load, or your friends. And it really helps to have a very supportive environment at work, which I'm fortunate to have.
I'm so glad that you have the privilege of having that supportive environment, and I hope that all of us watching this one day will have that kind of balance and that support, that they feel encouraged and excited to come to work every day, that I think we touched on before. In matter of success, I know that teenagers, when we're growing up, we see the examples of our parents, we see the examples of our grandparents. With social media, we see so many famous people, we see millionaires, billionaires, and we feel like they should be the standard. We feel like we have to be successful like them, or at least I know that I feel that way. So what is a differentiating factor that makes someone more successful in your career? What kind of skills do they need to have to be that successful standard?
In this field, I would say, in addition to having the right qualifications, a very big driver is the drive to really be in this field, the drive to keep learning. Because even in solar industry, there are so many changes that keep on occurring as a result of the technology change, as a result of the industry, as a result of the incentives and the climate of the political climate of the world. So I feel like more than just the technical skills and the experience, it's how much a person is willing to learn, willing to get their hands dirty, solve a problem, go to the field. All of those things make a big difference.
Yeah, I think that ambition and drive is something that is a differentiating factor in a lot of things, including academics and sports and all aspects of life. So I think as teenagers, we should keep in mind that we should pursue something that we feel strongly about so that we can be successful in whatever we do, as long as we're choosing the right thing. So I know we touched a little bit about the stress life balance, and just going back to that again, how do you deal with failures in your work? Have you ever had a project that backfired, and how did you deal with that?
There have been some projects which, despite everything going right, just didn't get installed. There were challenges with the timeline. There was a challenge. There was a very, very, very good project that I put my heart and soul into it. I met with the utility, I met with the permitting officer, I got the client on board, everything was working, but just the timelines didn't match, and unfortunately the project decided to be cancelled. That felt a little bit like a failure, but on the other side of it, we learned so much about that particular type of a project that we apply those lessons every day on many others. So it felt like we had to rewrite that so-called failure into something that helped us to be successful in so many other projects.
And I think this could also be one of those differentiating factors, if I understood you right, that learning from your mistakes and from your failures and taking it as a lesson instead of something that just looks bad on your resume or a unpleasant memory to think about. Yeah. Now we're going to start wrapping it up. And one question that I would like to ask, not in this interview, not just in this interview, but with all of the interviews on this podcast, is what is something that everyone gets wrong about your job?
They often think that a key aspect of my job is actually to create solar panels. It's not creating solar panels. We, as a solar engineer or solar project developer, we work with equipment that are listed, manufactured, and available in the market that we are serving. And we have to, it's almost like making a pie. You have to get the ingredients from various places, but you don't make the ingredients. And sometimes the recipe is fixed too, but the way things come along is always going to be different each time you bake it. So that's something which people think that I'm actually going and making panels or I just do design. There's so many other elements of the job that is not known to people.
Thank you so much for shedding light upon not just this LinkedIn description of your job, but rather all of the emotional aspects, the personal aspects of being a solar project developer. So thank you so much for that. And for our final question, is there something that you would tell a teenager right now who might be interested in the solar field? What could they do to get ahead? Are there any steps that they could take?
Certainly. They could start with just being interested in what aspect of a solar project are they interested in. Are they interested in being in the industry? Because being in the industry has so many options. You could be on the front end selling systems or projects. You could be in the middle, like myself, interacting with a project that's already come and fixing things for it and getting it ready for operations to install it. Or you could even do something in installation where you could actually get on the roof or get on the carport and wire things up. It depends on what they're really interested in, and there are so many jobs out there.
Thank you so much. And this is it for this episode on The Naive Expert. If you learned something that you didn't know before, please share this with one person who needs to hear it. Follow the show on Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know someone with a fascinating job that should be on here, please reach out to me. I'm your host, Anjalika Sriwastava, and see you in 2 weeks.